So many of you have been asking about when we're going to talk about something other than the Majestic-class battleships, and the answer is today. We've finished the Majestic-class battleships, having discussed every ship in that class, and today we're going to move on to discuss the class that sort of came to succeed them. Let's discuss the Canopus-class. So the Canopus-class was a class of pre-dreadnought battleships fielded by the Royal Navy starting in the late 1890s and proceeding all the way up to World War I. Before we start talking about the story behind the designing of these vessels, let's just throw some facts out there, starting with the ship's size. At 421 feet long, that's 128.5 meters long, she was a little bit shorter than the Majestic-class battleships, but they made up for that by being faster with a top speed of 18 knots. Their beam, or width, was 74 feet, which is 22.6 meters, and their draft was 26 feet, or 7.9 meters. To push this whole thing through the water at their intended 18-knot top speed, it was propelled by a pair of propellers, which are connected to a pair of triple expansion steam engines. All of this provided 13,500 horsepower to push the ship through the water. As for armament, her primary weapons were a pair of turrets, each of them holding two BL 12-inch Mark 8 35 caliber cannons, and these two turrets would be supported by 12 QF 6-inch 40 caliber guns and 10 12-pounder 76mm quick-firing guns. Supporting those would be an additional 6 3-pounder guns and 4 18-inch torpedo tubes. For armor, the ship traded the Harvey steel of previous vessels like the Majestic-class for Krupp armor, which was lighter but sturdier. Now, let's talk about one of the sort of interesting tidbits in this class. They were actually built to counter a very specific vessel. These ships were designed to counter the Japanese Navy, specifically the Japanese Navy's Fuji-class battleships, which had been fielded in the 1890s. The British Admiralty saw these vessels and immediately recognized that they posed a threat to British dominance in Southeast Asia, and this meant that the China Station would need a new class of battleships to counter them, and that's where these ships came in. Designed specifically to counter the Japanese in Southeast Asia, the Canopus-class was envisioned as an improvement on the Majestic-class in several ways. Some more modern elements were put in place, like the orientation of her funnels, which were sort of inline as opposed to being parallel with one another like the Majestic-class. Another major tidbit about the design of these ships is that they were designed from the ground up to be able to transit the Suez Canal. This is because they had operations in Southeast Asia in mind when they were designing this class of ship, so the sort of time saver that the Suez Canal represented would be a lifesaver for the Royal Navy. This meant that ships could take a quicker route to get to Asia from the United Kingdom, where these ships would be built. Ultimately, there were 6 ships in this class: the Canopus, the Glory, the Albion, the Ocean, the Goliath, and the Vengeance. These 6 ships would all be built between 1896 and 1902, and they would serve until the end of the First World War. And we'll get into sort of their individual stories as we talk about them one by one, the way we handled the Majestic-class. But ultimately, the Canopus-class represented a little bit of a shift in the Royal Navy, but still one that was not as prominent as later shifts that would come, most notably the changes with the Dreadnought. Still, they're fascinating battleships, and I look forward to being able to actually discuss their careers in detail in the coming weeks. If you'd like to learn about the stories of the Canopus-class battleships, what their careers would have looked like, I'll leave a link up here to a playlist I'm building all about the Canopus-class battleships. There you'll find videos on each of the ships in this class, discussing their careers and where they ended up. And remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Barbettes and Binnacles, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.